Hi, this is Robert with Cruzbike, and today I'm going to go over removal and replacement of the front wheel in case of a flat tire or other situation. Changing any flat tire is no fun. Changing the front tire on a Cruzbike is not particularly difficult though. Here I'm going to go over the simple method. The first thing we're going to do is lay the bike kind of on my lap a little bit with the drive side facing out. The first thing we want to do is shift into the smallest cog. I want to make sure we release as much tension on the chain as we can. If your derailleur has the locking pin, we can open that cage and lock that pin. It gives us plenty of slack. The chain might even come off the big ring. That's okay. Now we're going to remove the skewer. Now please note the front skewer does not need the centering springs. If your front skewer has springs in it, please take them off and throw them out. You do not need the springs on the front of a Cruzbike. They are only to center a skewer in the dropouts of a traditional bike or the traditional dropouts of the rear wheel of a Cruzbike. In our case, we don't need springs, so we're going to set that aside. Now we're going to hold the bike up near the fork, and we're going to pull the front wheel out. If I hold the bike up by the fork, I can keep the front end together. We'll simply lay the wheel there on the lap, keeping the cassette facing forward. We'll cover that a little bit later. And as long as I have my hands up near the fork, everything should stay nice and in place. The tension of the chain stay should keep the front end nice and steady. Now, we want to make sure we do not set the bike on the derailleur. Otherwise, you can bend the hanger. So you can lay it on its side, and once you've fixed your flat, now we're going to put the wheel back in. We're going to simply position the chain at the top part of the derailleur around the smallest cog, center the brake, and put that wheel right back in place, just like that. Put our skewer back in place. Tighten everything up. It's more than likely that during this process the chain will come off the chain ring. Note that the chain is a narrow, wide chain ring, so the chain will only fit one way on the chain ring. So you want the wide section of the chain to fit on the wide tooth, put everything back together, let the tension on the derailleur go. Put yourself in a nice, easy starting gear. Make sure the shifting works okay. Check your brakes. If everything looks good, you are ready to go. Back on the road. Okay, so that first one was easy, but some things don't go as planned, and sometimes things can come apart on your Cruzbike. Don't panic, very easy to deal with. So the same thing, when we remove everything, we're going to take the skewer out, lock the cage, the same procedure as before. But when we take it apart, we're going to pop things loose and see what happens. Okay, so we got this far, but now the front end pops loose. Just like that. That's going to happen if you grab the front end by the boom close to the pedals. You're going to pull the chainstay apart. The derailleur also might pop out. The chain's going to come off the chain ring. It looks like you have a real mess here. No need to panic. One of the nice things about this situation, or at least with the derailleur popped out of the chainstay, is now we can set the bike down on the fork very gently, and we can fix our tire or change our cassette or whatever work we were doing, and then we can get back to putting it all back together. The key here is just to take a look. Everything only fits one way on the Cruzbike, so as long as we think through the process here, we should be all right. Let's take a quick moment to talk about the cassette on the S40. The hub on the S40 is a convertible hub. It's a quick release axle, but it's convertible to a through axle. What that means is in this case, in this particular hub, the freewheel can come loose, just like you see here. Now, if this happens, this is one of the reasons why I take the wheel off with it leaning and the drivetrain facing out. If the cassette comes off, there's no need to panic. Everything will go back together. The key is to push the front axle all the way back through till it's flush. The little end cap on the non-drive side will probably pop off. You want to make sure you keep that in hand. And what you're going to notice here is the very fine teeth on the inside of the hub. That's also what contributes to the sound of this particular hub. And you'll notice here the pawls are very fine. You have 3 pawls here. Make sure everything's in place. And we're going to put the cassette and free hub body back onto the hub, and we're going to give it a gentle rocking motion, kind of at an angle back and forth, and it should pop right back into place. You don't have to force it. It'll go in with very little pressure. Now we're going to hold the cassette. We're going to push the axle back through, and then we're going to replace our top cap on the non-drive side. Now that we know that comes apart, we're going to be nice and careful. As long as you keep the cassette facing up at an angle, it should not come off. All right, now we're ready to put the front end back together. All right, we have all our repair made to our tire. We have our bike sitting here. Our front end has come loose. Our derailleur hanger is loose. Our chain is a little twisted up here. We're going to first pick it up. We're going to make sure everything is hanging nice and evenly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the wheel on the fork, just to give us a platform to work with. So we're going to kind of move everything aside. We're going to first get the wheel on the fork. Now we can kind of comfortably lay the bike down on your lap just a little bit, and we can take a look at the drive side of the chain. It's going to be the furthest point back from the derailleur. Make sure everything is lined up here. And we're going to lift the fork, and we're going to put that chain right back on that smallest cog, and then put the wheel right back down on the fork. Just like that. Make sure everything's nice and straight. And the derailleur only faces one way, so we're just going to keep that loose for now. Now we're going to spread the chainstay onto the fork, and now we can insert the derailleur hanger back between the fork and the chainstay, making sure it's nice and secure in between the notch. Once everything is secure there, we can put our skewer back in. Again, reminder, make sure you don't have springs here. They're not necessary. They only seek to bind everything together. We're going to tighten our skewer, put our chain back on, release our lock on the derailleur if yours indeed has one, shift ourselves into a lower gear, and we're ready to go. As always, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, email us at support@cruzbike.com.